These haunted museums are hiding artifacts cursed by the devil himself. First up, the Dybbuk box. Paranormal investigator Zach Bagans opened his very own haunted museum in Las Vegas in 2017, which is home to a number of items that supposedly have. One thing that's housed there is the Dybbuk box, a wine box that is said to be so haunted by a Dybbuk, which is an evil spirit who is supposedly able to possess people. In fact, the box served as the inspiration for the 2012 movie The Possession. Now, the item came to fame when it was listed on eBay along with a creepy story about its past and was eventually donated to Bagans for his museum. Side note, kind of, well, you know Post Malone? Well, apparently he has actually been cursed by the Dybbuk box. He was at the museum when Bagans decided to take the plexiglass cover from around the box and actually touch it for the very first time. While he was touching the box itself, Post Malone actually grabbed his shoulder, enough apparently to transfer the curse. Now, in the months that followed Post Malone experienced one, his private plane was forced to make an emergency landing after its tires blew off. Two, three armed robbers targeted a home in San Fernando Valley that they actually believed to be his. And three, his Rolls Royce was involved in a serious car accident. Yep, that sounds like curse to me, but time will tell if more things happen. The cursed chair, also known as Thomas Busby Stoop Chair. This simple wooden chair is said to have been cursed by accused slayer Thomas Busby. Now, Busby was executed by hanging in 1702 in North Yorkshire, but before he passed, he allegedly performed something sinister on the chair in question. Over the years, several passings have been attributed to people sitting in the chair and later passing in suspicious circumstances. It now remains at the Thirsk Museum, where it is displayed hanging from the ceiling, making it impossible for anyone, even museum staff, to actually sit on it. Next up, Great Bed of Ware. In around 1590, carpenter Jonas Fosbrook crafted a giant bed so large that it is said to be able to sleep 4 couples. The extra large bed now lives at the Victoria and Albert Museum, but over the years rumors have swirled that the bed is cursed by Fosbrook's ghost. Now, he allegedly made the bed to be slept on by nobility, but eventually commoners began sleeping on it as it traveled from inn to inn. His spirit is said to attack any low-bred person who dares to rest their head on it. The Great Bed of Ware has been mentioned in several literary works, including Shakespeare's Twelfth Night and Byron's Don Juan. Now, the Great Bed of Ware now sits on display at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. No one can sleep on it. The Unlucky Mummy. This is an ancient Egyptian artifact housed in the British Museum with a reputation for bringing misfortune and tragedy to those who come in contact with it. The mummy board, which is actually a wooden coffin lid adorned with vibrant paintings, was acquired in 1889. It was purchased by Thomas Douglas Murray, a wealthy collector in Cairo. Now, Murray's experience with the mummy were marred by a series of unfortunate events, including a firearm explosion that injured his arm and the unaliving of some of his close friends. Eventually, the museum sold the unlucky mummy to a private collector who tried to have the mummy exorcised. When he could not arrange it, he sold it for a handsome price to an American archaeologist who dismissed the happenings as quirks of circumstance. Now, the new owner arranged for the unlucky mummy to be shipped to New York aboard a sparkling new White Star liner about to make its maiden voyage. On the night of April 14th, amid scenes of unprecedented horror, the Princess of Amun-Ra accompanied 1,500 passengers to their demise at the bottom of the Atlantic. Of course, the name of the ship was, dun dun dun, Titanic. So as you can imagine, many people believe the unlucky mummy is the reason the Titanic sank. Photographers who have captured the mummy have reported strange occurrences such as, equipment malfunctions, unexplained noises. Sir Ernest Wallace Budge, the museum's keeper, attempted to mitigate the curse by moving the mummy to a different location, but the misfortunes just continued.
Alrighty, so that brings us to the midway point on today's list, James Dean's car. You know James Dean, right? I hope so. This man freaking loved his 1955 Porsche Spyder, having had it extensively customized, and he affectionately called it, yeah, you've guessed it, a little. Now, apparently the car was so transparently evil that Sir Alec Guinness, when meeting Dean for lunch, claimed, if you get in that, you're gonna be found dead in it by this time next week. Now, James Dean laughed it off. He was like, whatever. He went off to go prepare his car for the Salina sports car races, with his Porsche mechanic, Rolf Weatherich. Enlisting stuntman Bill Hickman to help out, their original plan was to tow, let's call it Little B, to the races, but Rolf felt it would be better to Dean to get used to the vehicle and run the engine in. I'm not the expert here. On that fateful Friday, Rolf sat next to Dean, while Hickman followed with his truck and trailer. Police pulled over the convoy and issued a pair of speeding tickets just outside Bakersfield, but that didn't slow anybody down. Please, this car was meant to go fast. Alright, so we're barreling down Route 466 at an estimated 85 miles per hour when a young student named Donald Turnipseed, driving a Ford two-door, decided to make a sudden turn onto Route 41. Now the impact sent the Ford almost 40 feet down the road and ejected Rolf from the Porsche. James Dean was pronounced dead on arrival at the Paso Robles War Memorial Hospital at 6:20 p.m. But of course, it wouldn't be a curse if it stopped there. When the mechanics tried to repair the wrecked car, it fell on one of them, crushing both his legs. Dr. William S. Ridge bought the Porsche from a salvage yard in Burbank and proceeded to strip it for parts. He installed the engine into his Lotus race car, then loaned the transmission and suspension parts to fellow doctor and racer Troy McHenry. Now our good doctor crashed the Lotus at the 1956 Pomona sports car races, surviving, but McHenry, not so lucky. He hit a tree in the same race. That was the end of him, and that's where the curse gains its strength. Two thieves who tried to take pieces of the car were both injured. Yep, the curse doesn't stop here. Shortly after those crashes, publicity monger and self-proclaimed King of Customs, George Barris, bought the Spider, promising to rebuild it. When the mangled frame was found to be beyond recovery, he chose to capitalize on the car's notoriety. The Porsche was loaned to the Los Angeles chapter of the National Safety Council, and from 1957 to 59, it went on a gruesome tour of car shows, movie theaters, and bowling alleys. In March of 1959, while in storage in Fresno, the car caught fire. No idea. Just poof. It suffered remarkably little damage, just 2 melted tires, some singed paint, and fortunately the fire didn't spread to the other vehicles in storage. Now meanwhile, Barris, yeah we all remember him, had sold a pair of tires from the 550 and both reportedly blew at the same time, causing the new owner to, skid off the road. Little B even managed to crush and kill a truck driver who was transporting it. The car has since disappeared into a museum archive, which is probably for the best. I'm nervous enough around regular cars, but the thought of this cursed monstrosity is making me extra jittery. Or that's maybe from the monster I had earlier. But still, as somebody who drives on the 401 on a regular basis, no thank you. Next up folks, we've got the unlucky mummy. Granted, I don't think I've ever met a lucky mummy, but make of that what you will. So even though technically speaking, an iceberg and poor building plans caused the end of the Titanic, what if there were supernatural forces at play that pushed the fate of the ship along? Enter, you guessed it, the unlucky mummy. It was donated to the British Museum in July of 1889 by Mrs. Warwick Hunt of Holland Park, London, on behalf of Mr. Arthur F. Wheeler. It was displayed in the first Egyptian room of the museum from the 1890s and has remained on public view ever since, with the exception of periods during the First and Second World Wars, when it was removed from its case for safety. It has left the museum on a number of occasions when it formed part of a temporary exhibition held at 2 venues in Australia, and between February 4th to May 27th of 2007, along with a bunch of other pieces, the unlucky mummy was exhibited at Taiwan's National Palace Museum during a press conference. The mummy to which the article belonged is said to have been left in Egypt since it never formed part of the collections of the British Museum. The mummy board is currently displayed in room 62. The name unlucky mummy is misleading as the artifact isn't really a mummy at all. I promise I'm getting to it, but it's a painted wooden mummy board. So it's kind of like the inner coffin lid. It was found at Thebes and can be dated by its shape and the style of its decoration to the late 21st or early 22nd dynasty. In the British Museum, it is known by its serial number EA22542. The beardless face and the position of the hands with the fingers extended show that it was made to cover the mummified body of a woman. Her identity isn't known due to the brief hieroglyphic inscriptions containing only short religious phrases and omitting mention of the name of the deceased. The high quality of the lid indicates that the owner was a person of high rank. It was unusual for such ladies to participate in the musical accompaniments to the rituals in the temple of Amun-Ra. Hence, early British Museum publications described the owner of 22542 as a priestess of Amun-Ra. E. Wallace Budge, keeper of Egyptian and Assyrian antiquities from 1894 to 1924, also suggested that she might have been of royal descent. But we're not quite sure. I'm not a history expert, folks, for a lot of reasons. And finally, we have the one chair you might not want to sit in. Or don't take my advice and see for yourself. Popularly known as Busby Stoop Chair, this wooden furniture is cursed by the spirit of Thomas Busby, who was known to ruthlessly, kill people. Thomas was arrested, tried, and condemned to death after he killed his father-in-law, Daniel Otzi, in 1702. Otzi and Busby were running a coin counterfeiting business, as well as other criminal enterprises, and they argued about the business, which ended with me ending you, Before getting hanged for his crimes, he requested to have a meal in his favorite local pub. And upon finishing his meal, he stood and said, "May sudden death come to anyone who dares sit on my chair." And ever since then, 63 people who dared to sit on the chair met untimely and terrifying deaths. I'm sorry, Someone out there waited until the death toll got to 63 before deciding, maybe there's something wrong. I feel like I would have noticed the common link in deaths by, I don't know, 20 weird deaths or so? At least. Specifically, locals claim that during the Second World War, Canadian airmen from the nearby base at Skipton-on-Swale went to the pub, and those who sat in the chair never returned from missions over mainland Europe. As recent as the 1970s, some fatal accidents were linked with the chair. Busby was, ended at Sandhutton Crossroads, beside an inn, which later had its name changed to the Busby Stoop Inn. The site of the execution, opposite the pub on the A61 and A167 crossroads, which are apparently now a roundabout, was said to be haunted by his ghost. Later, the owner of the pub donated the chair to the Thirsk Museum in the United Kingdom, and it's still there, but it's hung up above the ground to prevent any further deaths. Granted, it's only about 1.5 meters above the ground, which I don't think that's high enough. Stupid people will still find a way. May I recommend a healthy 3 feet, or put it in a box, or even better, put it away forever? Alrighty, what are we starting off with today? Oh, none other than the infamous Robert doll. Okay, maybe he isn't ancient compared to a lot of the other artifacts I'll be talking about today, but he makes up for it in the terrifying category. For starters, the doll only looks vaguely human. His nub of a nose looks like a pair of pinholes, and he's covered in little brown marks, kinda like scars. His eyes are beady and black, and combined with his malevolent smirk, he's terrifying to look at. And that's coming from somebody who loves creepy dolls. Clasped in his lap, he's holding his own toy, a doll with disproportionately positioned eyes and a too big tongue falling out of its mouth. Now, this doll originally belonged to Robert Eugene Otto, an artist described as eccentric, which, most artists are, but I promise, I'll elaborate. Neighbors of Robert used to hear him having a conversation with the doll, and this continued into his adult years. Okay, that's not too weird. He brought it everywhere and talked about it in the first person as if it weren't a doll. That might sound kinda batty, but yeah, it's the best way to deal with cursed objects. Trust me, I'm talking from experience. The doll remained stored in the Otto family home until Robert died in 1974. Now, after his death, a couple bought the house, and their young daughter found the doll in the attic. The girl often claimed that the doll was trying to enter. Go figure. If it was hidden away, probably for a reason. The doll is now on display in a museum in Key West and is still believed to curse people. His last caretaker before the museum experienced him disappear and reappear as he pleased, along with hearing footsteps and giggling in the attic. Some claimed the doll's expression changed when anybody badmouthed his owner in his presence. He's also been responsible for, a couple of car crashes, some divorces, broken bones. Okay, good Robert, please. I don't need to be cursed. Let's move on, shall we? Next up, we have the Dybbuk box, or Dybbuk box. Depending on who you ask, the pronunciations are different all over the interwebs. Nevertheless, in Jewish folklore, this is an evil spirit. Supposedly, a Holocaust survivor accidentally summoned the demon while using a homemade Ouija board, but managed to trap it inside the wine cabinet. Okie dokie, let's just unpack that for a second. Somebody summoned something evil with a Ouija board, sealed it in something else, and people keep trying to awaken it? Let sleeping demons lie, for crying out loud. It's a new year. Let's just not bring anything crazy into it. Kevin Mannis bought the box at an estate sale in 2001 and immediately started having nightmares about an evil hag. Ditto for anybody who stayed with him. Now, he gave the box to his mother, who suffered a stroke on the same day. By the way, this story was the inspiration for the 2012 horror film, The Possession. Probably heard about it. The box's later owners have also claimed that, that creature appeared in their nightmares as well. The last owner was Jason Haxton, director of the Museum of Osteopathic Medicine, who not only had nightmares but developed a strange skin disease and began coughing up red fluids, if you get what I mean. Now, at that point, he contacted his local rabbis, sealed the creature back in the box, and gave the cabinet to Zach Bagans. You've probably heard of him? Ghost Adventures? Yeah, that went in his museum. By the way, most recently in 2018, Post Malone fans claimed his series of bad luck was caused by his contact with the cabinet. Look, don't look at me, I believe in omens. Let those things be, let them be.
Number 3 on this list is bronze vessels. Indiana University says that these bronze vessels were found in tombs and were made for use in rites performed on ancestral altar or cast specifically for burial with the dead. Only Chinese kings and high-ranking nobility could afford such expensive and labor-intensive artifacts, which required a knowledge of mining, smelting, metallurgy, and casting to execute. From Shang Dynasty records comprised of some 200,000 inscriptions on bone and turtle shells, we know that Chinese ancestors were procreated with elaborate rites, feasts, and sacrifices. If ancestors were displeased with the activities of their descendants or the rituals offered to them, they might fail to act on their progeny's behalf or even cause their descendants harm. This could come in the form of poor harvests, droughts, or famine. The Chinese believed in a complex world of spirits which comprised a multitude of nature deities, royal ancestors, and others who controlled important earthly phenomena such as weather, harvests, births, deaths, and military campaigns. So it's pretty clear that these bronze vessels played a role in the rituals the Chinese performed with their dead, but the passage also leads me to believe that they may have been involved in causing people to die in the first place. These are ritualistic artifacts, and considering the Chinese believed in a complex world of spirits, I don't think it's unrealistic to think that they may have used these in rituals to curse someone with a poor harvest or even death. To use these bronze vessels in appealing to a deity and have that deity help them with their current issue. Of course, I'm only speculating here, and the exact use of these things in rituals will probably remain a mystery. Number 2 on this list is the Sanxingdui masks. The Sanxingdui masks are some of the most recent and most mysterious discoveries that archaeologists have made in China in quite some time. Aaron Reich says, remains of a gold mask dating back 3,000 years were found in a huge treasure trove of artifacts discovered at an archaeological site in China's Sichuan province, which sheds more light on an ancient civilization that remains mysterious to historians. The mask consists of around 84% gold, measures 28 centimeters high and 23 centimeters wide, and weighs about 280 grams, according to the English Language Daily reported. But according to Lei Yu, head of the Sanxingdui site excavation team, the whole mask would weigh over half a kilogram. If a whole mask like this was found, it wouldn't just be the largest and heaviest gold object from that period found in China, but the heaviest gold object found from that time period anywhere. The mask remains one of over 500 artifacts found in the cache at the site. The Sichuan province is one of the most mysterious provinces in China. These masks are gorgeous too and look to be extremely valuable. No one currently knows what they were used for. Something this beautiful has to be connected to royalty or to some sort of ancient and important ritual. Potentially something that someone might wear when performing a ritual that would connect them to a god or some other deity. Very little is known about this dynasty and their practices, so sadly these masks and what they were used for will also remain a mystery. And finally, number 1 on this list is the Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army has got to be the most famous Chinese artifacts to have ever been discovered. There's just simply nothing in the world that comes close to rivaling their uniqueness. Chinese workers digging a well in 1974 made a startling discovery: thousands of life-size terracotta figures of an army prepared for battle. Now called the Terracotta Army or Terracotta Warriors, the figures are located in 3 pits near the city of Xi'an in China's Shaanxi province. After the warriors were discovered, the site became a museum and a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987. The pits are situated less than 1 mile to the northeast of a pyramid-shaped mausoleum constructed for the first emperor of China, Xi Zhangquang. According to UNESCO World Heritage Center, archaeologists suspect that the unexcavated tomb could contain an entire replica of the city of Xi'an, which the warriors guard. The 3 pits contain an estimated 8,000 life-size terracotta figures, of which about 2,000 have been excavated. The figures were created to serve the emperor in the afterlife and include a mix of chariots, cavalry, armored soldiers, and archers. There are high-ranking officers, and one of the pits, number 3 actually, served as a command post for the army and contains an honor guard and ornate chariot for the force's chief commander. All 3 pits are active archaeological sites, and visitors can see excavations taking place. Maybe the most mysterious thing about all of this is what is in the unexcavated tomb that they're guarding. Based on how the tomb is situated, it's currently impossible to go inside without destroying some of the history, and this is why it remains unsearched. But one has to imagine that whatever is inside of it could be extremely valuable. Whatever is in that unopened tomb warranted the building of over 8,000 statues to guard it. I don't know if I've ever done anything 8,000 times, let alone build extremely intricate statues. Hit me with a comment down below on what you believe these ancient soldiers are actually guarding. Number 5 on this list is a cannon. Hong Kong is pretty much surrounded by water. Their entire culture is very connected to the water with fishing and boats. That's why finding things in the water isn't totally shocking. However, when that thing is a super heavy, super old cannon, then it's a tad bit more interesting. History Things says experts believe that this discovery might lead them to uncover more hidden treasures beneath the harbor city. Bill Jeffrey, the archaeologist working with Hong Kong's Underwater Heritage Group, comments that we see this as the tip of the iceberg. The Hong Kong SAR is 60% water, and yet nearly no archaeology has been done underwater here. The granite stock, which is known as the cross piece that can be found on most anchors, was around 6 feet long. This piece lay 10 feet below water and was situated near Hong Kong's High Island. After investigating this ancient maritime artifact, experts have discovered that this granite stock dates back between 960 to 1278 AD. This anchor fits the exact style and material that would have been used during China's Song Dynasty. I think what makes this so mysterious is that comment about how hardly any of the water has been explored for archaeology. Finding something like this underwater as they did can only mean one thing. Either somebody partied a little too hard 1,000 years ago and decided that taking a cannon out in the middle of the ocean and throwing it overboard was a good idea, or, and much more realistically, there are more archaeological finds to be had underwater. Who knows how many things they could discover just lying at the bottom of the ocean. Number 4 on this list is a tiny bird. Okay, so I'll be honest folks, this one isn't super mysterious, but it did come from China and it is wicked cool. The artifact is a very small bird sculpture, literally so tiny that you could probably fit 20 of them in one hand. It's made from blackened bone and doesn't really look like much. Just a very basic bird potentially sitting atop of a perch. So what makes this thing so special and why has it made our list? Well, this little bird is pretty freaking old. This tiny sculpture of a bird discovered at Lingjing, China is 13,500 years old. We're talking about something that is hundreds to thousands of generations older than we are right now. This Paleolithic bird, being the ripe young age of 13,500 years, is the oldest discovered 3D piece of art in all of East Asia. The way that it's made also indicates that there are a lot more of these little guys to be found. How smooth the sculpture is shows that this wouldn't have been a one-off from the artist and they knew what they were doing. I guarantee that whoever made this that many years ago couldn't even begin to comprehend that their tiny sculpture would make for a talking point on a YouTube video this many years later, and honestly, that's pretty cool.
Number 3. The Voynich manuscript. The Voynich manuscript is a coded book that was believed to have been written at some point in the early 15th century. It was discovered in a locked chest in Rome in the year 1912, and deciphering its history, and more importantly its meaning, has been the goal of several different scholars for many years before and since. Its first known owner was believed to be Rudolph II. Rudolph apparently thought that the mysterious book had been written by Roger Bacon, and purchased the book for a huge sum of money, roughly 600 ducats of gold. The first 100% confirmed owner of the text was an alchemist named George Barish, who found the mysterious book in his personal library, unsure of its origin. It was passed from him to a variety of scholars, emperors, and officials, all of whom failed to decipher its bizarre text and illustrations. Several of the world's best cryptographers from the First and Second World War have tried to decipher its 240 pages, and have not found any way to read the book. Some of the pictures include detailed sketches of plants that are not found in nature and zodiac signs. As you might expect, there are several theories about the purpose and author of this book, with some believing that it was a herbology text written in a lost shorthand, and others having more outlandish theories that it was created by aliens from another world. One theory is that the book was written by either a demon or the devil himself, and that anyone who manages to translate its contents will unleash a curse upon the world. A theory they believe is bolstered by the fact that several people who have attempted a translation have gone on to suffer several years of bad fortune. Whether the origin of this book is human or demonic in nature, it is still the most mysterious and curiosity-inducing books in human history. Number 2. The Anguished Man. The tale of this rather disturbing-looking painting is strange and steeped in mystery, but every scant piece of information we have on it is more unsettling than the last. The painting of a featureless man who seems to be screaming, was apparently painted by a deeply troubled artist who mixed his own blood with his paints in an effort to get the right shade of red. Not long after completing it, the artist took his own life, and the painting found its way into a woman's care. She kept it for many years, but claimed that once she put the painting up, her and her family began to see a dark, shadowy figure roaming about her house. At night, they would hear strange sounds like footsteps and crying. The woman took the painting down and kept it in her attic for 25 years until she died, leaving the painting to its current caretaker, Sean Robinson. Sean had been warned by his grandmother that the painting was haunted, but he thought little of it. Robinson kept the painting in his basement for about a decade before rediscovering it and putting it up. Once again, the family began seeing the dark, shadowy figure roaming the halls and hearing the sound of weeping and moaning during the night. Sean began leaving a camera on by the painting to try and get evidence of its paranormal nature, and upon reviewing the footage, heard some odd noises and saw evidence of doors opening and closing, seemingly by themselves, and the painting falling over onto the ground. As time went on, the activity became more and more intense, with his wife seeing a strange mist and an unseen force pushing his son down the stairs. Things went from bad to worse when guests who came to see the painting began reporting intense and sudden nosebleeds. Sean takes the painting out from time to show it to paranormal investigators in television programs who want to hear his story. But otherwise, the Anguished Man is apparently kept locked away in a safe location to prevent any further harm from coming to unwitting people. Number 1. The Basano vase. Although it has fallen out of favor now, for centuries, a common gift given to brides on the day of their weddings were intricate, ornate vases. Our next tale begins in the 15th century in Italy and spans over 500 years. Legend says that on the day of her wedding, a bride in a village near Napoli found a gift, with no clue which of the guests had given it to her. It was a 4-pound silver vase. She decided to put it in her room for safekeeping before the wedding ceremony. But when the ceremony was due to start, the bride was nowhere to be found. The groom went to her room to look for her, and found her lifeless body on the ground, with no trace of what had caused the death, other than her desperately clutching the silver vase. The bride was buried, and the vase was passed on to one of her family members to be taken care of. Within days, the second member of the family was dead from unknown causes. The vase was given to another member of the family, and when he also passed away, the family made the connection between all the recent tragedies and the Basano vase. Unsure of what to do, they reached out to a local priest, who upon hearing the story, informed them that whoever had given it to the bride had either cursed it or made it from cursed materials. He advised them to bury it on sacred ground. They dug a hole and wrote a note, warning, "Beware, this vase brings death," which they placed in the cursed vase. The vase was buried and remained underground for the next 500 years. By a horrible chance, a man in 1988 was digging and came across the vase. He read the note, but being the skeptical type, discarded it and took the newly found Basano vase to a local auction house. The vase went up for auction and was sold for the equivalent of $2,270 to a local pharmacist. Within 3 months, the pharmacist was dead, and the vase was sold by his family to a local doctor, who also passed away soon after. The vase developed a reputation after this, and several people who were approached to purchase it refused. But it was eventually bought by an archaeologist who, despite his family's protests, did not believe in curses. He died 3 months later. His family threw the vase out their window, but a police officer who was passing by saw this and tried to return it. The family refused the vase back and told him of its cursed nature. He tried to give it to multiple different museums, but having heard about the curse, they all refused. Fearing for his life, he did what the bride's family had done over 500 years prior and buried it in a lead box in a cemetery. Which cemetery he used is unknown, but let us hope that no unwitting soul rediscovers this cursed vase and unleashes it upon humanity once again. Number 5. Thomas Busby's Chair. Our first entry actually is in a museum, but the curators have deemed it so haunted and dangerous that they have been forced to take special measures to ensure it doesn't unleash its curse on the museum's patrons. The story begins in North Yorkshire in 1702, when 2 criminals, Daniel Otzi and his son-in-law, Thomas Busby, came into conflict. They were coin forgers who essentially ran a criminal empire, but Daniel disapproved of Tom's relationship with his daughter. This resulted in a fight, which ended with Daniel's untimely demise. Thomas was arrested soon afterwards and sentenced to be hung. There is some variation in what happened next. Some versions of the tale say that Thomas was arrested at his favorite pub, and others say he was allowed back into the bar for his last meal before his death. Whatever the case, before being taken away, he told the other patrons of the pub, "May sudden death come to anyone who dare sit in my chair." He was then taken away and hung across the street. As the local historian and poet William Grange described it, the bones of the poor wretch who had committed murder were hung to fester in the sunshine and blow in the tempest, until they fell piecemeal to earth, and tradition yet tells tales of night wanderers being terrified when passing this dreaded spot. While Thomas began apparently haunting the spot across from the inn where his remains were displayed, the curse he laid on the chair began taking effect. Over the years, many brave souls sat on the chair to prove that they were not afraid and paid the price. In 1894, a chimney sweep sat in the chair and was found the next day hanging next to where Busby had been displayed. In 1967, 2 Air Force pilots sat in the chair as a joke, but when they were driving home that night, they crashed into a tree and did not survive. A few years later, a builder sat in the chair and fell off of a roof later that same night. Not long after, a cleaner fell into the chair after slipping while mopping the floor and died of a brain tumor soon afterwards. In 1978, the owner of the now renamed Busby Stoop Inn decided that too many deaths had occurred and donated the chair to the Thirsk Museum. Although they didn't technically lock the chair away, they did hang the chair on a wall, 5 feet off of the ground, to prevent anyone from sitting on it and receiving Busby's fatal curse. Number 4. The Hanging Man Painting. This haunted painting is actually linked to a haunted photograph, making it twice as haunted as most objects on this list. It all started when a photographer named James Kidd took a seemingly innocuous photo of a wooden cart next to a barn. Kidd thought nothing of it until he had the photo developed and saw that a ghostly figure had made its way into the frame. On the left side of the cart, he could see a headless and hanging man. He showed the photos to others who searched for any sign of doctoring, but could find none. It was then that this photo caught the attention of a painter named Laura P. Laura claims that she felt drawn to the image and decided that she had to make an oil painting based on the photograph. While painting the picture, she reported feeling deeply uneasy, but pushed through to finish her art. The painting was hung at a local business, but was soon taken down after it reportedly began moving on its own and caused several important papers to go missing. Laura then put the painting up in her own home, but soon began to experience strange occurrences. These included objects being knocked over or broken, mysterious knocking on the doors, strange leaks, and perhaps most disturbing, the apparition of the headless man in her home. Once word of the haunted painting got out, she received several offers from collectors to buy the painting, but she has so far refused, claiming that she is afraid of what the painting could do in the homes of others.
Number 3. The Holy Souls of Purgatory. Purgatory, in Catholic belief, is kind of like a giant waiting room while the upper management figures out just where exactly they're going to find a good spot that's best for you. Well, that's simplifying it a bit, obviously. The soul is thought to be stranded in purgatory until it atones for its earthly sins, but you can hurry the process up just a little bit if your loved ones back on Earth are praying for you. In the back of the Chiesa del Sacro Cuore del Suffragio del Piccolo Museo del Purgatorio, or Museum of the Holy Souls in Purgatory, holds a collection of relics that have been singed by the hands of the souls of those trapped in purgatory. These burned handprints are believed to be the souls trying to communicate that their loved ones need to pray harder. I don't know about you, but I would definitely start praying real hard if burned handprints started showing up in my books, but I would be praying for an exorcist, more likely. Now, this is kind of interesting, and I didn't even know this. Purgatory isn't even mentioned directly in the Bible, but the concept of purgatory dates back to the 11th century. This notion that trapped souls needed to be freed came from a story told to the Abbot Odilo of Cluny by a monk returning from the Holy Land. He told this story about how this ship had been wrecked, that he'd been cast ashore on a mysterious island, and a hermit who lived on the island related his own story of a chasm from which screams of trapped souls and demonic flames rose and ravaged. He told of how the demons would complain about losing souls when your loved ones would pray for their behalf. So November 2nd was established as All Souls Day. Everybody, all the souls. Where it was believed that prayers by the living could help get all of those trapped dead in purgatory loose. You know, it's kind of like that one episode of The Simpsons where the town comes together to get Bart out of the well. It's a similar enough concept, you know. They sang a song, you pray, souls get out, Bart gets out, pretty much one and the same. This particular collection of burned relics in particular, though, was collected when Victor Jouet, the missionary behind the collection, experienced a fire that burned part of the original suffragio, leaving behind a scorched image of a face that he believed was a trapped soul. Now, again, just me personally, but if I saw a face burned into one of my possessions, I would move entirely, call an exorcist, be putting salt circles around my feet for the rest of my life, but I appreciate what he did too. Number 2, the Santa Maria della Concezione Crypts. Whew, my Italian is not as good as it should be. Inside the Santa Maria della Concezione Crypts, as many as 4,000 friars lie here. Well, lie is probably the wrong word, as they hang here is probably a more accurate description, as these 4,000 bodies are hanging from the rafters, decorating the space of every inch of the church. Now, it might seem a bit grim or beautiful, depending on your twisted point of view. We're a scary channel, I ain't gonna judge you. There's a certain chic to it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they have to spend a few hundred a month on keeping air fresheners and incense just running all the time there. Now, you might reasonably be wondering, hey, why do they hang bones from the wall like they're throwing a Halloween party and no one went to the store to get actual decorations and they had to make do with what they had? Well, they're not just festive. The practice dates back from the 16th century when the Capuchin friars, not named after the monkey but because of the hoods they wore, left the friary of St. Bonaventure to come live at Santa Maria della Concezione. They were ordered by the Pope's brother at the time to bring the remains of deceased friars with them to their new home so that all the Capuchins could lie together. With a huge amount of bodies on their hands, the brothers decided to get a little fun with it and decorate the walls of the crypts with their bones as a way of reminding them that death comes for all of them. Surely there's a slightly easier way to remind you of the ever-present mortality that hangs over us than literally hanging a bunch of pelvises to the buttresses, but what do I know? A plaque in the crypt reads, "What you are now, we once were. What we are now, you shall be." Which is grim. No way around it. The crypt contains a little bit of everything inside you. Crypt of skulls, lovely load of leg bones, and the star of the show is definitely the crypt of pelvises. Oh, make sure you get a photo in there. Make sure you grab a fridge magnet from the Pelvis Room gift shop. And number 1, St. John the Baptist's many heads. They say 2 heads are better than 1, which might be proof of what a great man St. John the Baptist is, because no one can seem to agree how many heads the guy actually had. The saint's head was supposedly brought back from Constantinople in 1206 by the crusader Wallen de Satan, but it seems this happened more than a few times, since 3 different shrines across the globe all claim to have the original head of St. John the Baptist, and no one's able to clear this up anytime soon. St. John was a forerunner of Jesus Christ, and the New Testament says that John was beheaded by Herod around 28 CE as a punishment for criticizing his recent divorce. Yeesh. Paintings of the beheading depicted on a silver platter, which is a nice way to get a severed head, I think. I don't know if I ever want a head delivered to me, but if I had to, I would want it on a silver platter. According to the legend, there really was a silver platter his head was delivered on that made its way to Constantinople or Istanbul, but was sold by the Crusaders in order to pay for his travels back. John's head was on display in the Amiens Cathedral up until the French Revolution, where they confiscated all church treasures, and it would eventually return home in 1816, then going all the way back to Rome from Greek monks who brought it to a shrine decorated with beautiful stained glass, one panel depicting the head on a silver platter. You think you wouldn't want to remember that. Well, here's where the trouble comes in. A German museum in Munich also takes great pride in having St. John's head. The Munich Residence Museum contains a bunch of other holy relics, but their most prized is the alleged St. John's head, although no one really knows how it got there. This skull is wrapped in cloth and heavily interred with gems. Now, 2 would be impressive, but St. John's got a crowd worth of heads because he's got 3. His last head can be found in Damascus, Syria in the Umayyad Mosque, one of the oldest and largest mosques in the world. This relic, also not exposed, wrapped in a cloth, and is currently located in a shrine dedicated to the saint. So will the real John the Baptist please stand up? Or do all 3 of these heads actually really belong to him, and he had to be beheaded 3 times for it to take? You know what, don't answer that. I'm not sure if that's something I really want to know. Number 5, St. Clare's fingernails and her hair. Now, some people say that fingernails and hair continue to grow after the body passes away. This is commonly repeated, but actually not true, because rather it's the skin around the fingernails retracting that gives the illusion that the fingernails are still growing. I thought I would just toss in a totally unrelated fun fact you can use at a party. These fingernails aren't growing at all, because they're not attached to anybody, and they're kept in a glass box alongside some of St. Clare's wonderful curls, like the world's worst and possibly stinkiest time capsule. Now, St. Clare was often overshadowed by her more famous mentor, Francis of Assisi, but St. Clare was her own woman, accomplished in her own right. She founded her own order of nuns, the Poor Clares. Inspired by Francis's teachings when she was a teenager, she renounced the world and founded an order based on the ideals of extreme poverty and contemplation. I should probably look into this order because being extremely broke and contemplating being extremely broke is about 99% of what I do. The order spread popularity and houses of Poor Clares were established far away from her home convent in Assisi. Now, it's said that part of what made St. Clare's decision to give up the worldly life so inspiring was that not only was she blessed to be born into a family of great wealth, but oh va-va-voom, St. Clare was a real stunner. Now, you know, the depictions we have to work with may not look like much, but they called her the first Jenner for her luscious lips and flowing locks. As proof of her devotion, Frances trimmed her beautiful extravagant hair as a physical manifestation of rejecting her former vain existence. As you can see, I'm not quite there yet. I'm still quite happy with my vain, disgusting hair. Now, someone down the line managed to get a hold of St. Clare's hair and fingernails. Maybe they were just sweeping the barber room floor. These treasures, for lack of a better word, were kept and encased in a reliquary at the basilica named in her honor. This also contains a rock crystal flask with her fingernails. Really not sure why anyone felt they needed to keep that. I'm not sure how holy these are, but hey, I'm not a saint or a bishop or a pope or any of that stuff. I'm just a YouTuber and I'm barely that even. But if you want to hear more of me narrating some of these strange and peculiar parts of the big globe we share, Top 5 Scary is the place to be. We got a little something for everyone. So make sure you click on through, like this video, subscribe, and hit that little bell, and we can keep on bringing you screams every single day, twice a day, and then some. But do that at the end of this video, okay? We got way more weird Catholic relics coming up for you. Number 4, papal hearts. You know, they say some people wear their hearts on their sleeves, and some people collect 22 hearts in marble urns inside a beautiful reliquary. We all have our hobbies. We all collect things. Just make sure those hearts are still in their original packaging, otherwise, you know, they're totally worthless. Well, these aren't just regular old hearts. These are the hearts of 22 former popes. Obviously they're former popes if their hearts are, obviously. At the Church of Santi Vincenzo e Anastasio a Trivia. Oof, that's a mouthful, we're not saying that again. You can find the sealed hearts of 22 popes in marble urns for all to appreciate. The popes are listed to the left of the altar, with the oldest coming in all the way from the 15th century with Sixtus V to the fresh and still beating heart of Leo XIII in 1903. Now, this custom of separating a pope's organs from the corpse sounds a bit strange, or a bit Egyptian, like they might mummify them. And then this process was called praecordia, and was done to prevent decay while funeral arrangements were made, and just to test a little bit if they were worried the Pope was going to reanimate. The tradition started up in the 14th century when it was established that when a Pope passed away, they would be mourned for 9 days. 9 days, with suffrage massages being said each day. They borrowed this little schedule from the Byzantines, who observed deaths of their emperors in a very similar manner. Really taking a while off. They took a whole pay period to mourn the loss, and then you dry those tears right up, get back to work. Now, this was all the rage for popes of yesteryear, very trendy, very in fashion. But Pope Pius X in 1914 had a change of heart when he expressly forbade it in his burial and will. He said, "Don't do any of that weird stuff to me." Those were his exact words, if you can believe it. Now, since then, his successors have all agreed and have all done the same. But who's to say? I feel this could be coming back in fashion. Pope Francis, how you feeling? You gotta listen to your heart on this one. Number 3, the Crying Boy painting. Some of my favorite cursed objects are a good haunted painting. Maybe it's because I had a huge fondness for Ghostbusters 2 as a little guy, and it's got a haunted painting as the main bad guy of that movie. Maybe it's just because I'm very enticed by the uncanny valley of a pair of eyes that you can look at but can never look at you back. We'll probably mention that in therapy next time. Anyway, case in point, take a look at this painting, The Crying Boy. Looks like a fairly normal painting, wouldn't look too out of place in your dentist's office. It's not really my kind of art, but I'm sure a generation of grannies love to put this in the parlor. It's been the center of a series of strange coincidences that are just too darn odd to be true. It was painted by an Italian painter, one Giovanni Bragolin, and mass-produced as a print across the 50s, so everyone could enjoy this sad crying boy in the comfort of their own home until they would burn down. Because for some bizarre, possibly paranormal reason, firefighters around Essex, London would report that frequently, amidst smoldering ruins of a burned down house, repeatedly they would find the Crying Boy painting completely untouched by the flames, even when everything else had burned to ash. Now, this happens once, that's bizarre. 2, very strange. If this happens 3 times, you've got yourself an outright paranormal mystery on your hands. The British tabloid The Sun loved the story and was spreading stories of the cursed paintings like a house on fire. Too soon? The Sun printed out warnings of people who owned the painting and that they should get rid of it, lest they find themselves smelling smoke. The story was so popular and people were so invested in the curse of the Crying Boy that the Sun tried to take it upon themselves to rid London of the curse by, get this, holding a bonfire in which anyone who owned a print of the cursed painting could come, torch it, and hopefully exorcise whatever demons had got into the printing press. The bonfire was a raging success, with sackfuls of the prints being torched, seemingly ending the curse of the Crying Boy. After hearing about this story though, does anyone else kind of want one of the prints? I don't know, there's something about it. Number 2, the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond has shown up more than a few times on this channel, and for good reason. It's considered one of the most haunted rocks on the planet. The diamond was first uncovered in India, with reports purporting that the diamond was plucked from the eye of a statue of the goddess Sita, the goddess of beauty and devotion. Legend has it that the first person who stole the diamond was mauled by dogs shortly after taking it. That's a pretty quick curse. From here, the diamonds passed through countless hands, never staying in one place for too long. It's said to have been owned by King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, who, as far as I know, never had anything too bad happen to her. Nothing worth losing your head over worrying about. That's a little history joke for you. Throughout the diamond's storied history, it's been said that just about every owner suffered a horrific fate. 14 confirmed deaths and owners throughout history, and that's only the ones we know of for sure, as there could be countless more. The jeweler who recut the stone into its current form, William Falls, died a ruined man in poverty and hardship. His son Hendrik stole the stone from his father, who would later be prompted to take his own life for the crime. After passing from owner to owner under grisly circumstances, it made its way to Harry Winston, an American jeweler who, possibly making the only good choice of anyone on this list, thought it better to play with his odds and donated the diamond to the Smithsonian Museum in 1958, where it currently resides, sealed away. The curators of the Smithsonian were thrilled to receive it and have said that they consider the gem a crown jewel, and that in all the time it's been in their watch, no one has suffered any ill effects. Maybe Indiana Jones was right. It belongs in a museum. That's too many Indiana jokes in one video. Too many Indiana jokes. I'm excited about the new one. I can't believe old Harrison Ford's coming back again for the millionth time. He's always coming back. Number 1, Robert the Doll. Every good list of cursed objects should definitely include one cursed doll. I know we had the Shadow Doll up there, but that was like a starter cursed doll. We got better ones. So that's why we're gonna finish up this list for today with a classic haunted doll. Dolls are just inherently a little bit scary when they're not being used for make-believe, and they're especially scary when they carry a series of unfortunate urban legends with them, like the case of Robert the Doll. Maybe you've even heard of Robert the Doll, maybe from this very own channel, maybe from this very own host, because I mentioned him in the first video that I ever did. It's all full circle. He's one of the more notable cursed dolls out there. If you're in the cursed doll community, you probably know him. Robert has been haunting for over a century. He used to be the property of one Robert Jean Otto, although he shared a name with the doll, he preferred to be called Otto. Maybe because of the doll he wanted to be called Otto. Anyway, Otto received Robert as a boy from his grandfather, who obtained the doll through unknown means. Trying to trace wherever it came from has proven fruitless, as no toy company has ever been found to have produced it. Now, the young Otto loved Robert and had a very active imagination to a degree that would unsettle his parents. parents. He would refer to the doll in first person and brought it everywhere with him, even dressed it in his own clothing. Otto would say that he would hear Robert talk to him and would see him move. Children who passed the homestead when walking by would say that they claimed that they saw Robert in the windows watching them. Otto would blame all these mishaps on Robert. Injuries, breaks, anything that happened, it was because Robert had told him to do it or that Robert the doll had done it. This behavior kind of understandably deeply worried Otto's parents. Otto kept Robert until the day of his death in 1974, where he then traveled from home to home, causing a path of misfortune wherever he went until he eventually found himself in the Key West Art and Historical Society, where he's now kept under very tight lock and key and has become the museum's most popular attraction, where visitors leave him offerings, treats, and even writing letters asking for protection or for him to curse others. Employees of the museum say sometimes they feel uncomfortable around him and have noticed a chill in the air by his seat or electrical malfunctions near where he sits. It's been said that they need to stay on his good side lest they provoke his wrath. Maybe it's a good thing then that he's locked up tight in that glass case, and there's just something about this guy. And Robert the doll, if you're watching right now, just want you to know all that stuff I was saying, I was just playing. You know we're friends. You know we've always gone together, you and I. You know I'm a big fan of the scary doll community. I just wanted to make it clear, we're cool. Number 5, the Shadow Doll. Coming up on the number 5 spot today is part of the collection owned by the late Ed and Lorraine Warren, big top 5 scary fan favorites. One of the first items you'll see when entering the Warrens' haunted museum is this terrifying little shadow doll made of bird feathers and real human teeth. The Warrens' son-in-law and current proprietor of the now defunct museum, Tony Spera, offers a little bit of insight on the doll, saying it was originally acquired at an antique shop where it was being sold, with the owners of the shop being none the wiser of the doll's evil. That's completely on the antique shop owner though. You know, you come into a possession of a doll made of bird feathers and human teeth, your first instinct should not be to stick a price tag on it. You should toss it into the ocean or burn it, something like that. Spera claims that the doll's curse works by taking a photograph of the doll, and then when it develops, you write the curse that you'd like to inflict on the back of the photo, and you send that to your victim. And the person who opens the envelope and sees the doll in the photograph will invite the curse into your home. Now, probably a lot of pictures of the shadow doll behind me, or pictures of the shadow doll being interspersed in this video right now. I just want to tell you, I don't have any curses in mind. I didn't write any curses down. I don't have a negative thought inside my head, buddy. I barely have thoughts inside my head as is. If I would curse you with anything, I would curse you to always find loose change, always get texts back from your crush, and I'd curse you to always make the right amount of pasta. I'd only curse you good things. Now, the real question I have to ask about this scary shadow doll is, do you think it's jealous that it's not the most famous haunted doll in the Warrens Museum? I know I would probably have a very hard time sitting next to Annabelle all day. Everyone's coming to gawk and take photos at my movie star sister. Ugh, hard life. Nobody's gonna make any movies about me. No wonder that doll was cursing people. And if you're looking for more stories about cursed dolls, I've got lots and lots and lots and lots of those. And I've got lots of other scary things too. Aliens, ghouls, goblins, conspiracies, just about anything you can think up. I've done a video or 2 on it. So hit subscribe. Please make sure you hit that little bell as well. That means you get every one of the videos we make. But do that at the end of this video if you wouldn't mind, because I got 4 more crazy cursed objects coming up for you right about now. Number 4, cursed ballista balls. Like, the last couple years had everybody acting pretty strange. I think it was unprecedented times. Maybe you binged all of Tiger King in a day. Maybe you got really into making sourdough. Maybe you returned a cursed artifact you stole when you were a teenager. We all went through some personal development. In 2020, a source that chooses to remain anonymous returned an ancient artifact that they'd stolen as a teenager to the Israeli government. A Bronze Age ballista ball fired during the Great Jewish Revolt by the Romans. The thief swiped them as a teenager when visiting with a group of friends and went on to live a fairly normal life, a successful career, found a partner, sired some children. Throughout his entire life, he felt as if there was a weight over him, as if he had some invisible presence of guilt weighing down on him forever. And he said no matter how long it had been, or how much his life had moved past this childhood act of delinquency, his heart could never move on from it, and he felt as if he'd been cursed to forever bear the guilt of it. During the events of the last few years, he said it stirred in him this apocalyptic feeling that made him want to return the ballista balls in the hopes of finally clearing his conscience. Do you think at any point during all that fun stuff during the quarantine and everything, do you think he was ever worried that he might have accidentally done it by moving those ballista balls and that's why he had to put them back? Through Facebook, he ended up getting put towards the right channels within the government to return it. But you know what's really bizarre about this bizarre story? This isn't even the first time this has happened, because in 2015 an almost identical story played out. In 2015, 2 ballista balls were returned to Israeli authorities alongside a note stating, "I took these in 1995 from a residential quarter at the foot of the summit. They have brought me nothing but trouble. Please do not steal antiquities." Well, I've got to say it's a nice change of pace to hear about people trying to undo a curse before anything got too heated. And you know what? I like these stories. It's a very easy to follow message for those of us listening at home. Don't steal antiquities. Unless you're Indiana Jones, that should be some pretty easy advice to follow in your life.
The Viking Buddha of Helgo. Now this one will mess with your idea of history. In 1954, archaeologists excavating the Swedish island of Helgo discovered a small bronze statue of the Buddha. Yes, Buddha. Dated to around the 6th century AD, the figure somehow traveled thousands of miles from India or possibly China all the way to Viking territory, centuries before global trade routes were even formalized. Now this bronze statuette of the Buddha stands about 8.4 centimeters tall. Specialists in Buddhist, kind of iconography suggest that it was manufactured in northwest India perhaps, sometimes around the 6th century CE. What makes the item special though is that it was excavated on a small island in Sweden, just west of Stockholm. Now in the mid-1950s, excavations began on the eastern end of the island of Helgo. Now the excavators found evidence for occupation from the 4th century CE to the 11th century CE. In July of 1956, excavators uncovered the Buddha in an indistinct lair outside the remains of one of the structures on the site. Now the site, located on a series of terraces on a hillside, was challenging to excavate and, also interpret. So how did a Viking, end up with a Buddha statue? Well, some believe it was looted from a shipwreck or passed through an unknown global network, but others say it points to a suppressed history of Viking contact with, distinct civilizations and spiritual exchanges where, we've never been told about. The statue is held now by the Swedish History Museum, but it's rarely displayed. I mean, according to insiders, the museum avoids putting it on, exhibit because it just raises too many unanswerable questions. Would you go visit it? If you could, let me know. If you have or want to or plan to, I would love to hear about your experience. The Oseberg Viking tapestry that depicts something else. The Oseberg tapestry, a fragment of which was found in the Oseberg ship burial, is a source of mystery due to its fragmented nature and the unique depictions it basically contains. Now, the tapestry, made of wool, silk, and flax, is one of the few surviving examples of Viking age textiles and features scenes of humans, animals, and wheeled vehicles. Now, the original size and full narrative of the tapestry remain unknown, prompting ongoing research and interpretation. When the Oseberg ship burial was excavated in Norway in 1904, archaeologists found something incredible, this preserved tapestry. But this wasn't just Viking embroidery, no, hidden in the artwork were strange, haunting figures like horned beasts, masked men, and what looked eerily like human sacrifice. Experts initially dismissed the imagery as symbolic, but decades later, researchers noticed something very chilling. The scenes in the tapestry didn't match known Norse myths. Some of the figures resembled Egyptian gods, others matched beings described in Celtic or even, Mesopotamian lore. Now, the tapestry includes depictions of horned helmets, which are rare in Viking art, and scenes that may depict rituals or possessions, adding to its enigmatic nature. Now, the tapestry may be evidence of forgotten Viking rituals or proof that, they encountered civilizations far beyond what historians admit. And the worst theory, well, the figures might not be metaphorical at all, but depictions of real beings the Vikings encounter. The tapestry tapestry is now kept in controlled storage at the Museum of Cultural History in Oslo. Now, it's never been fully displayed, not because it's damaged, but because interpretation remains inconclusive and very sensitive. Researchers are using computer algorithms and AI to analyze the fragments and piece them together, hoping to gain a better understanding of the tapestry's original form and meaning. So stay locked in to see what more information comes out about this artifact. I'm sure it will. The Oseberg burial ship, however, contained a very rich collection of grave goods, including 2 female skeletons and a variety of artifacts, suggesting the women were of high social status. These items include textiles, household and farm equipment, a wooden cart, 4 sleighs, and 5 carved animal heads. The ship itself, along with many of the artifacts, is remarkably well preserved and on display at the Viking Ship Museum in Oslo. The seer staff that was quietly removed from display. Now, in 1961, a Viking woman's grave was unearthed in northern Norway. Inside was an iron staff, about a foot long with an oddly curled end. It looked like nothing else from that period. At first, it was labeled a distaff used in weaving, but folklore researchers had other ideas. A vulva was a seeress or sorceress in Norse culture, feared and revered for her connection to the deceased and the gods. The most distinctive feature of these burials is the presence of an iron staff, often with bronze ornamentation. Now, these staffs, also called seer staffs, are believed to have been tools for divination and magic rituals. When the staff was displayed briefly in the Tromsø Museum, strange things started happening. Lights flickered, alarms went off at night, a security guard refused to enter the exhibit alone after claiming he had heard chanting in Old Norse. The staff was quietly pulled from the exhibit and moved to secure storage. Officially, the museum cites artifact degradation, but insiders say the staff is considered too spiritually charged for public view. Vulva burials are often found among the graves of wealthy and high-status individuals, indicating their respected position in Viking society. These Viking artifacts aren't just fascinating, they're deeply disturbing. I mean, whether it's technology that shouldn't exist, runes that whisper warnings, or spiritual relics that still radiate power centuries later. The Ulfber's sword that shouldn't exist. In 2008, German archaeologists unearthed a Viking sword near the Weser River, unlike anything they had ever seen. The sword, believed to be over 1,000 years old, was found embedded in clay during field plowing. Now, x-rays revealed the inscription, which I'm gonna butcher this, but it's like Velbert, something like that. Sorry if I got that completely wrong. Now, this indicates it's one of the highly valued swords, known for their exceptional quality and Frankish origin. Now, this weapon was made of such pure high carbon steel, it shouldn't have been possible to create for another 800 years. Now, here's the kicker. Modern metallurgists say the sword matches the strength and purity of steel made using industrial methods, not medieval ones. That's like finding an iPhone buried in a Roman ruin. Now, some believe these swords were crafted using technology that came from, well, somewhere else. Possibly even the Middle East, through secret trade or something even stranger. Now, the scariest part? Several collectors and researchers who've tried to replicate the sword have reported disturbing dreams, sudden illnesses, and in one case, an unexplained fire that destroyed an entire lab. Museums now store, the original sword deep in archives, citing security concerns. The sword will undergo, though, kind of conservation and further study to determine its exact age and analyze the inscription in more detail. The Kylver stone. This is the rune stone that was buried for a good reason. In 1903, on the island of Gotland in Sweden, archaeologists uncovered a flat stone in a young boy's grave. It was inscribed with a full Elder Futhark, which is the oldest known runic alphabet. Now, the Kylver stone was found during the excavation of a cemetery near a farm. Now, in 1903, the stone was a flat limestone rock used to seal a grave, and the inscription was written on the underside and could therefore not be read from above. The dating of the stone from 400 CE is based upon the archaeological dating of the graves. Now, here's where it gets a little unsettling. The final rune on the Kylver stone resembles a bind rune, often associated with curses. The stone was quickly kind of reburied by locals, but not because it was irrelevant, but because of what followed. A string of bizarre demises in the excavation team, including one man who reportedly gouged out his own eyes before passing. That led to rumors that the stone was indeed cursed. Locals claim the runes weren't just a memorial, but a binding spell meant to trap a malevolent spirit within the grave. Now, Swedish museums now list the Kylver stone as, kind of archived, but rarely frequently mention it in exhibitions. Even scholars debate whether displaying it could release whatever it was meant to hold. The Kylver stone was removed from Gotland and brought to the Swedish Museum of National Antiques in Stockholm, where it is on display as of 2022. So if you want to go take a look at it, you know where to go.
Number 3. The Woman of Lem. Modern art can be a bit confusing. It's hard to understand an artist's true meaning behind their work, especially when things start to get abstract. Looking at the Woman from Lem statue, it's hard to even make out what this is supposed to be. A fertility statue? Primitive bog roll holder? You wouldn't even know just by looking at it just how lethally cursed this statue is. We don't know who crafted this or why, but we do know that under no circumstances whatsoever should you ever touch the Woman of Lem statue, lest you're looking to incur the wrath of a centuries-old evil. The statue was first uncovered in 1878 in Lem, Cyprus, giving the statue its name. Carbon dating suggests the statue was formed around 3000 BC. Hey, wait a minute. Do you think Otzi the Iceman ever saw this statue? You think maybe it's the same curse? Was life just significantly more cursed back then? Now back on hand to the topic. Once the statue was found, it began to wreak havoc almost immediately. Legend says 4 families are purported to have lost someone after touching the statue. The first owner, one Lord Elfont, a lord during Cyprus's time as a colony, lost 7 members of his family after acquiring the statue. Sometime afterwards, the next lord to acquire it, Ivor Minucci, obtained the statue and lost his entire family in the span of 4 years. The next victim, one Lord Thompson Knoll, just like the others, his family passed away within 4 years. The stories say that eventually, his remaining surviving sons, understanding that they had a responsibility to rid themselves of this generational evil, gave the statue off to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh for safekeeping, or maybe just to pass the curse along like a vicious cycle of regifting. Within a year, the museum curator passed away mysteriously. Right now, it's still kept there, locked away behind a glass box, never to be touched again by human hands. Let's try and keep it that way. Number 4. The Iceman. The Iceman cometh for us all. In 1991, on the peak of the Otzi Alps in Italy, a pair of mountaineering tourists came across what they thought was a deceased hiker, which in a grandiose sense was kind of true. Not a recent passing, however, because the Iceman in question was dated from 3000 BC. The nature of his passing is unknown, so the criminal could still be out there at large. A fascinating find for the scientific community, the Iceman, nicknamed Otzi after the mountain he was found in, shined a light on history previously unseen. Otzi was the oldest body ever discovered with tattoos. History's first bad boy, if you will. After being unearthed, the body was brought to Austria to be studied intensively, but nothing the researchers discovered could have prepared them for the curse that they had unearthed. A worrying amount of people involved in the study of the Iceman found themselves befuddled to an ancient unearthed evil. The first man to discover Otzi, one of the hikers, fell off a path on a mountain to his doom. A mountaineer passed in an avalanche. A forensic pathologist was involved in a lethal car accident en route to give a speech at a university about the Iceman. In total, 7 researchers involved in the study of the Iceman and observers found themselves losing their life after meeting him. So where is the Iceman now? Hopefully supervised? Well, Otzi is currently being held in the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology down in the bottom of Italy, where he is kept in a climate-controlled environment to maintain his preservation. Locked away, visitors are permitted to come see the Iceman, but only through a frozen thick glass window. Is that room to keep him cool and preserved? Or is it to keep whatever curse lay dormant inside his bones docile? All we know is that we're thankful that Otzi's just chillin'.
Number 1. Cursed Ledger. A family in Kent donated this haunted book to Brighton's most haunted house, Preston Manor. They donated it after they were plagued by spectral visions and paranormal visitors. The shop ledger is from 1915, but was found trapped in a brick wall at a jeweler while a demolition was being performed in the 1980s. It was discovered by Tony Benovitz in 1988 when he was demolishing the Shoreland Fuchs shop, which had closed in 1984. He, for some reason, decided to bring the book home, and it caused him and his daughter to suffer a myriad of paranormal hauntings, which they described as spirit visitations. His daughter, Josephine, claimed that images appeared in her rug, including a group of men, women, and children, and a soldier with a horse. She said that the spirits told her that the book had to be returned to Brighton for the anniversary of its first entry in December of 1915. The spirits' requests caused Josephine to phone Preston Manor, who sent a medium to visit the house. The medium confirmed that they sensed bad things emanating from it. Wow, specific. Josephine happily donated the ledger to the manor. She had no interest in keeping it to herself, or even keeping it in her possession. Fair, I mean, I don't think I would want to keep it either, to be honest. The manor recalled their thoughts about the book, saying, "At first, we weren't sure whether we'd take this apparently ordinary 100-year-old shop ledger, but the family impressed on us quite how scared they were of having the book in their keeping. When I had a phone conversation with Josephine, she seemed petrified." The book contained entries listing the jewelry sold from the shop it belonged to. After the book had been donated, Kent, the officer of Preston Manor, kept the ledger on her desk for a couple of weeks, but was unable to understand what exactly had happened to the book. Preston Manor holds several haunted items and is well known for the plethora of ghosts and spectral activities it contains. If you're a fan of getting haunted by the Lady in White or the Grey Lady, those are descriptive names, then you should definitely consider taking a trip to Brighton and Hove, East Sussex, to visit Preston Manor. They absolutely have their share of Victorian ghosts and haunted artifacts. Definitely a lot for the paranormal enthusiasts of the world to enjoy. Number 5, the Great Bed of Ware. Located in the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Great Bed of Ware has become infamous for its dark, twisted history. Constructed in 1850, the bed was created as a tourist attraction for an inn in Ware. The 4-poster bed is over 3 meters wide and is the only known example of a bed this size. It's been said that it is able to accommodate at least 4 couples, minimum. 8 people, wow. Guests would carve their initials into the wood or apply red wax seals to commemorate their stay and leave their mark on the bed. The marks are still visible on the bed to this day. The bed's carving is typical for the late Elizabethan period, with ornamental ribbon-like patterns, lions and satyrs to symbolize fertility and virility. By 1931, the bed became the single most expensive item of furniture, specifically a single piece of furniture opposed to a set. According to legend, the carpenter who made the bed was so enraged by the disrespectful treatment of his work that his ghost attacked any commoner who slept in it. And you know, the carpenter made the bed for a king, and then traveling commoners slept in it and carved their names all over. I'd be kind of upset too. Like, he must have believed the bed was going to be treated a lot differently than it actually was. The bed he had made for a king was instead damaged and covered in graffiti. The bed is now on display in Britain, and you are able to visit it. But luckily for both you and the carpenter's ghost, no one is able to sleep in the bed now. Number 4, the Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army is a collection of terracotta sculptures that depict the armies of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. You know, the one that searched for immortality and ate mercury in an attempt to live forever? Yeah, that one. The statues are a form of art that were buried along with Qin Shi, with the purpose of protecting him in his afterlife. The statues were first discovered in 1974 by a group of local farmers. The figures varied in height according to their rank, the tallest being the generals. The figures included warriors, chariots, and horses. There were 3 pits, which held over 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots with 520 horses, and 150 cavalry horses. Most were found in the mausoleum for Qin Shi, but there were also some found in nearby pits that weren't directly in his massive underground grave. The village that the farmers were from believed that if they disturbed the army, they would receive misfortune and bouts of bad luck. Their suspicions were sadly correct, seeing as their 2,000-year-old village was destroyed in order to create an enormous museum over the area. I mean, I'd say that's less misfortune and more human idiocy. Just leave well enough alone. You don't need to make everything a spectacle. The extravagant funeral art is available for observation in the museum, and pieces of the army have been sent all over the world. But you should definitely think twice before deciding to visit the exhibit. Bad luck and misfortune are definitely able to spread to curious onlookers. Guys, I know I usually tell you to stay curious, but if you come across someone's funeral art, don't be curious. Turn around and pretend like you never saw it. It's like if you decided to unearth someone's coffin just because you thought it was cool. It's weird. That would be a weird, disrespectful thing to do.
Number 3 on this list is the Screaming Skull of Burton Agnes Hall. The Screaming Skull of Burton Agnes Hall wasn't necessarily from a tomb, but it was recovered from a grave, so I think it still counts in this criteria. Burton Agnes Hall was built in the 17th century in Yorkshire. It was built by Sir Henry Griffith, who had 3 daughters he loved very much. They all moved there and were very happy for a time. One of the daughters was named Anne, and Anne loved to explore the outdoors. One day though, when she was exploring, a gang of robbers got to her and they beat her and left her for dead. When the family found her, there was barely any life left in her. They brought her back to their home, but her time on this world wasn't long. While she was dying, she had a very strange request to her two remaining sisters. She begged them to take her head and put it within the walls of the hall so that she could always be there with her family. She was dying, so they agreed, but neither of them actually intended on taking their sister's head off and keeping it in their home. A few days later, she died and they buried her outside the hall without keeping their promise. This was a big mistake though. After she was buried, strange noises and banging sounds started happening all over the hall. Screams and crying could be heard throughout, and moans the family couldn't ignore. Eventually they gave in, dug Anne up, and took off her head. They brought it into the hall and the disturbances, they stopped. But years passed and the ownership of this hall changed. The new owners, they had no interest in a dead girl's skull in their home and got rid of it, but sure enough, just when they did, the noises and the hauntings started again. Over the centuries, people have tried and tried again to rid themselves of this skull many times, but eventually they always cave and they have to bring it back in. The skull truly is cursed and it must remain inside the home at all times if you ever want any peace from Anne's spirit. Number 4 on this list is King Casimir IV's coffin. King Casimir was born in 1427 into royalty. By 1440, when he would have only been 13, Casimir was named the Grand Duke of Lithuania, and only 7 years later in 1447 became the fully fledged King of Poland. He stood as the King of Poland right up until the day he died. Oftentimes, kings don't make it right up until their death, but King Casimir's success was pretty historic. He's known in Polish history as being one of the most politically active and prosperous kings to ever rule over their country. During his reign, he won several wars, recovered territories for Poland, and made their royal family one of the leaders in Europe. Due to all of the glory that he received in his life, it was only fitting that he have a tomb that reflected this. He died when he was 65 years old in 1492 and was put to rest in the chapel of Wawel Castle. There he lay for roughly 500 years until 1973. Researchers opened the tomb to find a horrible surprise. The researchers opened this tomb and investigated the mummification process and all the artifacts he was buried with. They took his body and coffin out of this place and brought it back to their lab. What they didn't realize though was that this coffin had a curse to it. It's estimated that over 15 people died who worked on researching this body and this coffin. It took a while before they realized what was causing this death, but eventually they discovered the error of their ways. You see, the coffin was cursed, but it wasn't cursed with anything ghostly, it was cursed with Aspergillus flavus. Cursed is also a misleading word to use in this instance as well, because Aspergillus flavus is actually a pathogenic fungus. A fungus that when exposed to people can become a killer. For a long time, people thought that there truly was an ancient curse surrounding this coffin, but it was actually this fungus that kept preying on people's immune systems. Eventually, King Casimir's body was taken and put back into his tomb, but not before the damage had been done and over 15 people had lost their lives.
Number 2, the Cursed Mirror. Originally sitting in the main foyer in its 17th century antebellum home in Louisiana, this haunted object has been witness to some nasty history. The Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana is the home to deep-rooted slavery. The American South is known for its disgusting use of slave labor and would be the home in which this haunted piece sits. The house owned first by Mr. and Mrs. Clark Woodruff. These were racist plantation owners, and violent ones at that. It is said that the couple were very sadistic towards abuse of the slaves. A young woman by the name of Chloe was particularly abused when eavesdropping on a conversation Woodruff was having one night, resulting in him cutting both of her ears off. That's so unnecessary. Her mutilation was hidden, but Chloe planned her revenge quickly and decided to poison a cake which Mrs. Woodruff and her 2 children would be eating. She killed all 3 of them and was caught, tried, and hanged for her crime. It is Chloe's ghost in which experts say haunts the cursed mirror from the plantation. Ghostly women are seen in the mirror walking by, and smudged handprints are always seen, even with new trimmings and polished glass. The cursed mirror is believed to have Chloe's spirit trapped inside of it. By gazing into the mirror, evil things apparently would happen, resulting in health problems. Weird things happen around this mirror, and where it lays now, that's Ed and Lorraine's business. Ed and Lorraine are taking care of it, of course, thank God, and it sits in the couple's occult museum in Connecticut. ungazable. Today, the Myrtles Plantation has been changed into a bed and breakfast, but still remains one of America's most haunted houses. What do you think? And coming in at number 1, Annabelle. Possibly the most infamous and dangerous possessed artifact found at the home of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Their occult museum is the home of the Annabelle doll. We know a little bit about this doll, of course, with all the films about her in the last couple years. Tons of people have flocked to the museum to take pics in front of her vase. She rests inside a glass case ominously marked "Warning. Positively do not touch." Warned. She was previously owned by a nursing student, Donna, in 1970. Gifted from her mother from a thrift store. After some creepy incidents involving the doll like levitating onto the table and moving around by itself, she took the doll to a medium who revealed it is possessed by the spirit of a little girl who died young. Ed and Lorraine were eventually called after the incidents would not stop, and they offered to take it to their home. However, this is the scary part on the drive home. Ed himself said that the doll was making the car do things out of his control. Stuffed in a bag, doused in holy water, he still felt the presence. The engine kept turning off, power steering would all of a sudden lock up. The hardest part was getting it into a safe locked case in their museum, where it's been ever since. Thank goodness. The doll holds evil power and demonic possession, Lorraine says, and she refuses to even make eye contact with it. Yeah, you know it's bad when they won't even look it in the eye, huh? The museum unfortunately has been shut down since 2019, but the cursed objects still seem to be staying put. Thank goodness.
In at number 3, we have UFO in Brazil. A 110-pound mysterious large sphere was discovered in the northern Brazil in 2012. A 46-year-old man named Valdir Jose Mendes told police the sphere landed several meters from his house, leaving a 1-meter deep hole in the yard. He said, I quote, "I heard the noise and I went out to see what caused it. I thought it was a plane that had fallen or an earthquake. The noise scared Mendes so much he didn't even go outside to check it out. Eventually curiosity got the better of him and he headed outside to find a cashew tree in his yard was snapped in half by a mysterious metal sphere laying in a hole nearby. 20 villagers along with Mendes helped extract this mystery object from the ground to further examine it, and it was hollow, and if shaken some sort of liquid can be felt swishing inside. This mysterious object became a huge uproar in the community and over 2,000 people came to see this UFO. Due to this being found in the year 2012, it was thought that this could be the beginning of the end of the world, and others think it was an alien craft. There have been many sightings of UFOs throughout history in Brazil, starting in 1947 and to this day. A meteorologist at the National Institute for Space Research stated he believes it is a piece from a satellite. Military police soon confiscated the sphere and took it to the barracks in nearby Mata Roma. They didn't specify what the UFO's possible future will be. In a statement, the Air Force Command said it does not have specialized structures to perform scientific research on this type of aerial phenomena, which prevents the institution to submit an opinion on these events, so we don't really know who is right in the situation or what this object really could be. In at number 2, we have space balls. The residents in southern Spain were stunned when numerous amounts of mysterious objects landed in their villages in 2015. The first ball was found in November by 2 shepherds in Calaspara. A second object was found a couple weeks after in Villavea, and just a few days after the second finding, yet another was found in Elda. After the first object was discovered, the Civil Guard initiated a CBRN protocol to check it out wearing a hazmat suit. The agents reported it was not an explosive device and was not dangerously radioactive. They then took the object away for further research. It appears that similar precautions were taken with the other 2 objects as well. It was reported that these objects were around 3 feet in diameter and weighed around 44 pounds. Concerns quickly started swirling from residents of these new findings, like where are these things coming from, why here, and will more fall? Many questions that could not be answered right away, but a spokesman from the Alicante police said it looks like a piece from an aerospace vehicle but not a commercial plane. It could be a piece of satellite or something similar. Falling space debris over populated areas are a risk for people on the ground. The Alicante airport is one of the busiest tourist destinations in Spain, with more than 10 million passengers per year. The Space Track website provides predictions of most upcoming re-entries of spacecrafts, as well as historical information, but it listed no re-entries that could explain the event in Spain. This was a clue that the object had been related to a military mission, which aren't revealed, so it made it harder to solve what these objects were or where exactly they came from. The mystery was solved by SATOPS, a network of amateur astronomers. According to SATOPS, the spheres found in Spain are, which stands for Composite Overwrapped Pressure Vessel (COPV) tanks from a Centaur rocket body, the upper stage of the Atlas V rocket, which had been launched on March 13, 2008 from Vandenberg. And finally, in at number 1, we have meteorites. Things fall from the sky all the time, but sometimes space can bring some of its compound components to our Earth. And cases of that is meteorites which have been found all throughout the world. These space rocks are most easily recognized and recovered from desert regions either hot like Arizona or cold like Antarctica. An estimated 25 million meteoroids, micrometeoroids, and other space debris enter Earth's atmosphere each day, which results in an estimated 15,000 tons of that material entering the atmosphere each year. Even though this is a massive number, most fall into the water that covers 70% of our planet's surface and are unfortunately never recovered. One that was recovered was in January of 2018 when pieces of a meteorite fell in Hamburg, Michigan, and these pieces were found in a frozen lake. After thoroughly analyzing the space rock, scientists announced that the meteorite contained thousands of organic compounds that had formed billions of years ago. The compounds date back to the early days of our solar system, meaning meteorites that crashed onto young Earth may have carried similar molecules. Back then, organic compounds from meteors could have been incorporated into primitive microbes, the team said, so studying the Michigan meteor can give us a glimpse into early life on the planet. Again in 2019, between the villages of La Palmera and Aguas Zacas in Costa Rica, an extraordinary discovery was made. A rainbow-colored space rock was found. Ongoing studies hint that the fireball may contain the chemical building blocks of life, the soft meteor nebula. That very nebula would later birth our solar system. The rainbow meteor contains complex carbon compounds, which may include amino acids which can come together to form proteins and molecules like DNA. One of the largest meteorites found was in New York City in 1902 by a man named Ellis Hughes. It weighed a whopping 15.5 tons and 84 square feet long. This massive space rock now resides in the American Museum of Natural History. Don't be too worried that you may be hit with a meteorite though, because when rocks from space hurtle towards Earth, they burn up in the atmosphere before actually reaching us. That's why so many that are found are small fragments of a larger one. Coming in at number 5, we have UN-271. The outer solar system is littered with big chunks of rock and ice, but rarely do their orbits bring them close enough to Earth for us to get a good look. And then in 2014, UN-271, an approaching object that astronomers believe to be a huge comet on a million-year orbit around the sun. In a few years, UN-271 might get close enough to put on a neat firework display. This mysterious object is currently 22 AU, or astronomical units, away from Earth. Just 1 AU is the average distance between the Earth and the Sun, and it's extremely difficult to spot comets before they get toward the inner solar system. Even being so large, it took years of observation and analysis to nail down its orbit and position, and could possibly be one of the largest comets ever to be seen. This comet is a large Oort cloud comet that was discovered by astronomers Pedro Bernardinelli and Gary Burstein in archival images from the Dark Energy Survey, and is commonly known as the Bernardinelli and Bernstein comet. More research has been done and further observations have narrowed down its size more precisely. A new analysis led by Bernardinelli and Bernstein themselves found that the comet nucleus is around 150 kilometers wide based on its brightness. If so, that makes it the largest comet ever discovered by quite a lot. Most are only a few kilometers to several dozen kilometers wide, while some particularly big ones like Hale-Bopp may be up to 80 kilometers wide. The previous record holder, Saryabhat's comet of 1729, has been estimated at about 100 kilometers wide. It is believed that by January 2031 it will be the closest it will ever be, and may even be able to be seen by the naked eye. Coming in at number 4, we have Salyut 7. Before the rise of the space age in 1957, the only things we had to worry about falling from space were meteors, asteroids, and the occasional comet. But today, satellites and spacecraft regularly launch into orbit and beyond, and sometimes they fall back to Earth. Salyut 7 was a space station in low Earth orbit from April 1982 to February 1991, and was a part of the Soviet Salyut program. Back in the day, it used to be the largest and most unique man-made creation to enter the Earth's atmosphere. Then, in February 1991, after 9 years in orbit, the Russian space station became one of the largest human-made objects to re-enter Earth's atmosphere. The space station was meant to stay up in orbit for many years. However, unexpectedly higher solar activity in the late 1980s and early 1990s increased atmospheric drag on the station and sped its orbital decay. Due to its low orbit, Soviet engineers attempted to guide its descent into the Atlantic Ocean, but their efforts failed. The speculation of where this massive craft would fall has triggered panic in one Russian village, which shut down its businesses and schools for fear of falling debris. After much speculation, the £88,000 station shed metal fragments over Capitan Bermudez in Argentina. People in Argentina reported seeing glowing trails in the sky, and it was also said the falling of the craft triggered a rain of fire in the sky. The Argentine news agency said blazing pieces of the Salyut 7 complex could be seen from several towns in the provinces of Cordoba, Buenos Aires, Mendoza, San Luis, Neuquén, and Chubut. Thankfully, no injuries were reported and many fragments were found throughout Argentina. There was actually a movie released in 2017 titled Salyut 7 that was loosely based on these true events from 1991 and other true events that happened with another Soviet Salyut program regarding the Soyuz T-13 mission.